The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bit by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hey, it's time for the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is Andre Mayet, and thank you once again for tuning in. Big thanks to Ukla Lamach for our theme song, Superpowers. And thank you, gentle listener, once again for tuning in to the show. Very glad to have you here. Very excited that we've hit episode number 60, in which today's featured interview episode, I'll be speaking with Mike McCluskey, also known as Fat Apollo, a well-known figure in the convention communities right here in Nova Scotia, but also all across Canada somewhat. He's done conventions in New Brunswick and Newfoundland, even Toronto coming up, as he mentions in the episode. So he is certainly an awesome dude, very cool person, and we get to talking about where he came up with Fat Apollo, his connection to comics, nerddom over the years, his father was a very interesting character, his mother was an even more interesting character, and some of the things that come with that. It's with a heavy heart, however, and this news isn't bad, just change. And change isn't necessarily bad. But, things are starting to open up a little more because of the COVID vaccine is going around, and the numbers are going down because of that, as well as the work from lots of groups and things to get under control, and therefore things are starting to open up more. In fact, meaning some of my extracurricular activities are opening up more, and it's making my schedule a little busier than normal. And also, it seems like ever since I started this thing, I've been getting a lot of ads on Facebook, mainly for YouTube channels, screen rants, other things, all related to comic characters. Anytime one shows up on a show, like, hey, here's a 2-minute video that explains the history of, something. And, I saw that and said, well, they don't go into as depth as I do. They don't tell the whole thing. They don't cover it all. But it's enough that kind of makes me think, well, I don't know if the graphic history part of this Graphic Histories Podcast, the comic part of this Graphic Histories Podcast is really necessary in a way. And I did a lot of thinking about it. I talked to some friends that listened to the show, got their insight. And a friend of mine kind of laid it out for me. He said, Andre, I like those episodes. He said, but they don't really let you shine through. He said, I like your personality. I think you have a lot of fun with people. You enjoy talking to people, and it really shines through when you do. And you don't really get that with your sort of featured histories of characters. So I kind of thought it's not much of a retooling, really, to just change the format of the show a little bit and make it primarily interview-based. Interviewing people related to comics, nerddom, geekdom, sci-fi, fantasy, anything that's sort of... in that realm. And I really, really do enjoy those episodes. I love talking to people. I have a great time just chatting with people that are in the industry in some way, even loosely connected to it, and just learning about their stories and talking about anything and everything. And I really feel like as a person, or rather as an interviewer, I really shine in that way, more so than I do with coming up with these sort of canned histories of these characters. And I do enjoy doing those, but I really feel like... I shine brightest when I'm doing the interviews. So I'm going to retool the show and make it interview-based. I'm going to change it to a bi-weekly format. And every 2 weeks, you'll have a new featured interview. And if I get lots of people coming down, maybe I'll change it to weekly. We'll see. But for now, I'm going to do bi-weekly interviews. So today will be the first of the new format, which I speak with Fat Apollo or Mike McCluskey. I hope you're okay with this. I mean, I know you can't answer me right now, but feel free to reach out on social media if you have any questions or if you're concerns. I know I have some fans out there, and I'm really happy you're there. I hope I don't lose you by doing this shift, but I really think that if you've stuck around this long, you must enjoy the interview shows, and I think you'll enjoy them more as time goes on. I have some really cool people lined up in the pipe for future episodes, and I hope you'll tune in and catch those. So, it's a journey. It's still going on. It's not stopping. I'm really digging this. I'm going to keep it going. It's a joy. And, I've hit a year. I'm on episode 60 now, season 2, going primarily to the interview format. But I think it's a real positive thing. And I think it's only going to make the show stronger. So keep tuning in. 2 weeks' time, there'll be another episode, and we'll have a new guest as well. But I'll always do these sort of pre-segments where I chime in on things going on in the comic world or the movie comic world. They just announced the trailer for the Guardians of the Galaxy game for, I think it's PlayStation and the other systems, and it looks really fun, really, really fun. I actually finished the Miles Morales Spider-Man game and then jumped onto the Avengers game, and a lot of people kind of crapped on that game. The Avengers game, that is, not the Miles Morales one. That one's amazing. But a friend of mine actually worked on it, and so that's why I picked it up. I wanted to give it a shot. And I think some of the critics are pretty unfair to it. It's fun. It's got an epic feel. Like, a lot of people were upset that the characters didn't look like the characters from the movie. And I talked to my friend, I don't want to name him, but who works for Eidos in Montreal, and he said, do people not realize the amount of money it would cost to get the likenesses of Chris Evans and Tony Stark and all, or Robert Downey Jr. and all these characters? Like, it would be a fortune. A fortune. So, it has a really epic feel. It feels like a really epic Avengers story written by, some of the best writers in Avengers. It's a really big story. The villain in the game is, if you know anything about comics, it's fairly obvious early on, but it's still really cool. I'm excited to see where they're going to go with it, and I'm enjoying the game. You're playing as Kamala Khan a lot, which is really neat. Ms. Marvel is a cool character, and I'm super excited to see where the game goes. It's a really epic story. It's really fun. It feels like a movie. Cinematic a lot, so I think you'll enjoy it. Check it out if you haven't played it already, or if the reviews were holding you back. But he did tell me that the Guardians of the Galaxy game, they have a lot of music that fits into the theme, like, of the movies, the time period. A lot of licensed music they got included in the game, which really enhanced it. And he said he thinks people are really going to enjoy it, and I'm inclined to agree. It looks awesome. So make sure to keep an eye out for that when it comes down the pipeline. But anyway, without much further ado, I will go into today's episode with Mike. Mike moderates a lot of events at cons. He moderates panels. He hosts these things called baby races, where people that bring their babies to the cons will put them down, have the mothers at the other end, have the babies try to whichever one gets to their mother first, which are fun little events. And lots of other things like that. He's rubbed elbows with a lot of people on the con circuits. He has a lot of stories. But the one thing I always knew about him, and we talk about it a lot in the podcast, is his sort of outreach and championing for a lot of causes, a lot of social justice causes, in the Halifax area, all over, really. If anyone targets geek community, they target the LGBTQ plus community, anything like that. Mike's always the one there waving the flag and kind of beating the monsters back, online and in person. And it's something I've always really respected about him. It's a really admirable trait, and one you don't see a lot, especially in today's world with a lot of people sort of spouting off online about everything. It's rare you see someone actually taking a stand, even if it's something that's not related to them. He will defend people that he feels need defending, and that's an amazing thing about Mike. And you'll hear that. You'll hear him talk passionately about that in the interview. And you also hear a lot of really fun stories about things at conventions, and a lot of love for Gamera at the end, which is a fun little thing that we both appreciate. So anyway, here is my interview with Fat Apollo, Mike McCluskey. Hey,
How you been?
I've been doing all right, man. How about you?
Good. I had a much bigger beard. I just shaved it off, actually.
Oh, we could have been beard brothers.
Yeah. Well, you put me to shame, man. Mine doesn't look anything. Mine was just this weirdo beardo. So I'm going back to just the goatee again.
I used to I let it go crazy, and then every once in a while I get someone to trim it, and they'd always take way too much. I'd be like, I'm never getting someone to trim it again. And then, months will go by, and I'd be like, I'm gonna get someone to trim it. Maybe this one will be better, and it's never better, never. So I'm just gonna let her go. My goal is to look like the guy from Sweet Tooth right now. I'm just gonna let her go. Big and bushy, get some round red glasses, be terrifying. That's my plan.
Did you see the Sweet Tooth that they did a wrap of the newspaper for USA Today?
No.
And it was like, it looked real. Like, unless you looked and saw the word advertisement, and it said hybrid animal babies born all across America.
Yeah, I saw that. It was like I thought it was the Inquirer, though.
Oh, no, it was USA Today.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, and you look on the back, and it's an ad for the show.
Yeah. So you know that, like, there are people going, what, Martha? What the?
Hybrid babies?
What the hell?
I knew there was something wrong with Billy.
Yeah, that's right. His hat just won't fit.
That's right.
What is with that?
Part baboon head. I always said it. How have you been surviving during the
Oh, good.
pandemic and everything, man? I haven't talked to you in a while. Probably.
Oh
since
my God,
convention.
yeah. I really haven't talked to anybody except the Flynns for
Yeah.
any length of time. So I've been, this will make 16 months home from work,
Wow.
but I've been working. I've been
Yeah.
working full time. It's just that we were able to move all of our operations virtually, and we did it with no notice. So
Really?
we went from having 0 people working from home. No way, no how will you ever work from home. Don't even think about it. To 500 people working from home.
Wow.
And now it's like, okay, I'm never going back to the office. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think if one good thing has come from this, I think most people are realizing that. Like, there are so many jobs, like productivity having to be in an office. Like, that's a big myth.
Oh.
It's a huge myth.
Oh, it's a huge myth.
I think there's
Huge
stats that are
myth.
showing way better productivity if people work from home, like way higher.
Yeah. I'm literally doing more work in less time.
Oh, for sure. Well, think
Yeah.
about just the general day at an office with other people. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to talk to somebody, someone's going to come and tell you about the weekend, like there's so much whatever stuff that you don't need to deal with. And then if you cut
Yep.
off the table, like, I guess it's making people more insular because we're all
Yeah.
at home now and not being as social, but on a work vibe, maybe it's a way to move towards, maybe less work time, but more efficient use of the time and people
Yeah.
working from home.
And, and I work for a UK company, so we're already remote in a way.
Mhm.
And I'm actually now, this is giving me more opportunity
Mhm.
because they would never have a trainer from Canada
Mhm.
train people in the UK. But
For
now
sure.
they're like, can you do it? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
So now I'm doing all this training in the United Kingdom because I'm available. And they're like, okay, well, you've got the system set up. We're going to have you train people in the UK, which is great because it's fun. It's always fun to talk to other people.
Mhm.
And it also is good for me because it gives me variety, that I'm not talking to the same 150 people every time.
Of course, yeah. Now, do you have
It's
to
different.
do that in an English accent? Do they require that?
My English accent sucks. my good friend who works with me, his name is Andrew Monahan.
Mhm.
The G is silent, but the good looks aren't.
Oh,
Andrew's from season 1 of Big Brother.
Uh-huh.
So he actually came 4th on Big Brother.
Really?
And he's hilarious. And as you probably remember, I was the spare for season 1.
Mhm.
So we actually almost interacted.
That's
Which
hilarious.
now that we know each other, we're like, A, we would have cleaned up because we're
Mhm.
devious shitheads. And second of all, we get along so well. And whenever I try to do an accent, he just mocks me because he's really good at accents.
Yeah.
Plus he's very quick.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very funny guy.
Mhm.
But so the accents don't go. But I'll tell you something. Let me tell you something interesting I learned.
Mhm.
So every country, every community, every culture has those sort of throwaway lines.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, you and I meet and I go, hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that you're not doing well. Right? Like, I don't want to hear that. I just want,
Can you imagine a
good.
world where people answer that honestly?
Yeah.
It'd be a nightmare.
I know. So how you doing? I ate a lot of cheese. I'm really bound up. Great. Good to hear that, Bill.
Yeah.
So here's the thing though. When I first started working with Admiral, I work for Admiral Insurance, which
Mhm.
is based in Cardiff, and it's the largest Welsh company in the world. It's
Mhm.
amazing. It's a great company. And their expression is, are you okay?
Mhm.
So the first couple times I'd be walking down the hall and someone would turn to me and go, you okay? And I'm like, whoa, what? Why do you think something's wrong?
Am I dying? Am I pale? What's going
Right.
on? Yeah.
Well, because, if your boss suddenly sits you down and goes, hey, man, are you okay?
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
immediately go, why are you saying this? Do you think
Yeah.
there's something? Am I drunk? What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on? But to them, it's a throwaway line. They don't want to hear anything. They just want to hear, yeah, I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah. So just
And
the
so
basis.
Yeah. So I was telling people in the UK, because trying to tell them the difference between Canada and the UK, I said,
Mhm.
we seem pretty interchangeable. We all got the Queen.
Yep.
We're British subjects, quote
Mhm.
unquote. And we have a lot of the same law, right?
Mhm.
But here's an example. I said, if I go to a bar and I turn to the guy beside me who I don't know and go, are you okay? I said, I probably have a 50% chance of getting punched in the mouth.
Yeah. Probably.
Because this guy's gonna go, what's wrong with you? What do you mean, am I okay?
Yeah.
You mind your own business, buddy.
Exactly.
And when I tell people this in the UK, they go, I never knew that. And I said, yeah, because over here, you okay means you're not okay.
Yeah.
There is something wrong with
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
mister. So that was a very funny learning experience for me, because for the first couple of months, I didn't know. And I thought, am I doing something wrong? Do they think I'm, and then finally to one of the people, I said, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? Am I okay? And they're like, it's just a greeting.
I love the idea that you just run into someone on the street that you normally say, like, hey, how's it going? And then they're like, what do you mean? You know,
what do you mean by that?
One day they've had it for months. What do you mean? They've just had enough. It's just built up, and they're just like, you're the one that finally like blows their crank. It's like,
yeah, they just.
What do you mean?
Yeah, but
why does everybody keep saying that? What's wrong with me?
Yeah, what am I? Like smell. You see, I used to go to Cardiff at least once a year.
Oh wow, you're lucky. That'd be really
cool.
cool.
Yeah, great. You know, that's where they filmed Doctor Who.
Of course.
So you get to walk around and you see Doctor Who, and you know, and I got kicked off the set of Doctor Who, which was
legit.
Oh God! So what happened was this. So I was in Cardiff. It was actually the weekend of HowlCon. Yep. It was the HowlCon I missed because I was in Cardiff, but I flew in and did the closing ceremonies. Mm-hmm. So they picked me up at the airport. I drove straight in. Hi, everybody. Did you miss me? You know, was I supposed to be here? So I was in the pub and I was just having a drink by myself, right? And I could hear these people in the corner and they're like, werewolf, werewolf. And I'm like, what the hell are people talking about werewolves for? So I kind of peek around the corner and it's a group of people, about 10 people, guys and girls, younger than me. And they're playing Werewolf the Game.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, oh man. And I came over and said, hi, I'm Mike from Canada. I'm sorry. I'm being very nosy. You're about to play Werewolf. I said, I sometimes host Werewolf as a host. Mm-hmm. I would really like to hear you play a game so I can hear your stories and your color. Mm-hmm. And they said, we've never played this game before. Will you please host it for us?
Oh, wow.
So I ended up playing Werewolf all night with these people that I had never met before, really nice people. Uh-huh. And it turned out they had a podcast that they would go to places that Doctor Who was filmed.
Okay.
And do descriptions and stuff like that. So a couple nights later, I'm in my hotel room, text message. It's one of them. They said, hey, by the way, they're filming right down the street from you, about 2 blocks. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm going to go see. It's like 1 a.m. I'm going to go see what they're doing. So I went out and it was, I could tell you the episode, but I can't really remember it, but they're in an art gallery. And so what they did was they had all these big Keelig lights outside shining in.
Who was the doctor?
It was, it was only 6 years ago.
No, it would have been Matt Smith then, wouldn't it?
Matt Smith. Yeah, it was still Matt Smith.
Was it the episode, the one about Vincent Van Gogh?
No. Oh, no.
I was going to say, because if they filmed that in art gallery. So
yeah, it wasn't. It was past that. So anyway, I'm walking by and I could see nobody's outside, but the trailers are. And I'm like, huh. And one of the doors for the side of the building is open. And I'm like, well, they wouldn't have a door open if they didn't want people to walk in. I go.
It's a very Canadian assumption.
Yeah. I take one step inside the door and it's just someone yelling at me at the top of my lungs to get the hell out of here. And I'm like, I have now officially been kicked off the set of Doctor Who.
That is hilarious. I wonder if it would it have been the day of the Doctor, like the special? Because that was in
I don't remember.
That would have been a hell of a one to go into, because like John Hurt and Matt Smith and Tennant and all of them in it. That would have been so cool.
Well, when I was over there, they still had the Doctor Who Experience, which was like a little theme park that you would go in.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Oh, it was. You pay all your money and it's an interactive show. Mm-hmm. So you're walking like, okay, we got to go to the TARDIS and we're on, what's the Daleks' home planet name? Sarlacc or Sarlacc? Anyway, whatever the home planet is, and you're on there's Daleks there. And
Scarrow. It's Scarrow.
Scarrow, that's it. Yeah. So you go through and then you get to the TARDIS and you gotta fly the TARDIS. So you're
dude.
And you're all by yourself. I'm there all by myself. And I'm like feeling like a goofball. Right?
There's like a little kid with his mom waiting to do it, like holding his hand. Like, when is this man going to be done, mommy?
And I'm doing the thing. And you go as a group. So it's a group of you.
That would be
the
super
doctor.
Fun, man.
And then the doctor appears on the screen and he gives you encouragement. But then the best part of it was, once that's over, you go into the museum, and the museum has like all the costumes, all the Cybermen, all the car from season 3, all the different. So that's the cool part.
Yeah,
is seeing all the bits and pieces. So
it's like
it was fun, but it's gone now.
No, man, because I would love to go to that. Like,
it was really worth it. The Doctor, I have the keychain, and the keychain is the Vincent Van Gogh painting. Of the exploding TARDIS.
That is amazing. Yeah, My wife and I went to Ireland and Scotland a while ago, and I thought
Yeah.
England and France might be another one, and I definitely would want to do that sort of thing.
Oh, it was
I mean,
fun.
documentary.
And there's two cool things. That number one is you walk around the city
Mhm.
and you just see where they film stuff. Like there's the carousel.
Mhm.
Oh, there's the Burger King that they run by. Like I
Yeah.
can see all this. But the second part is, did you ever watch Torchwood?
Absolutely.
Remember Children, not Children, I meant Children of Earth,
The
a
third
miniseries?
series, the third one, I think. Or
Yeah. Where
Yeah.
when Yanto dies,
Yep.
there's a memorial wall to him in Cardiff.
Oh, really?
Down at the waterfront, right by where Torchwood is. Like you can go stand on the entrance to Torchwood. It's the Millennium Center. It's very fancy new building. But if you go down to the water, there's a big wall with pictures of people and flowers and thank you notes. And there's a plaque that says, in dedication of Yanto Jones, he died so that children may live. Da 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 da. So it's like a real memorial.
Wow.
And then below it is another plaque that says, he never existed. This is
Oh,
a
yeah.
television show. So I actually, but I went up and put my little picture of Fat Apollo on the wall. Little picture of Fat Apollo among
That's
the
amazing.
children. So
Oh,
it is really cool. But, they're kind of like, I guess, what we would be like with Trailer Park Boys.
yeah.
Where,
I
because
suppose so.
Trailer Park Boys filmed here. People have been on
Yeah.
it. We all know. We've met them all.
I've been on it.
Yeah, I know you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. And you just sort of go, oh, that's cool. Like you still think it's cool,
Yeah.
but it's not exciting,
No,
right?
it's
But
it's a touristy thing for others, not so much the people from here. For
yeah,
sure.
and I get people that come from the UK are like, oh my God, they filmed Trailer Park Boys here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I drive them around. There's Penhorn Mall where they stole the carts from. And
Yeah.
here's in Cole Harbor where they film the scene. So
Yeah, tell them, bring them to Truro. I'll take them to the
Yeah.
trailer park where Snoop Dogg was at when they. That's the
The
episode. That was the episode I was in.
oh, the famous Snoop Dogg episode.
Yeah, I got to meet him very briefly, and just said hi. But
That's cool though.
Tom Arnold was there too, which was funny.
What was he doing there?
He was in the episode. He played himself in the show, and
I missed that.
and Doug Benson, the the weed kind of comedian, he
Yep.
was there too. And oddly enough, Emmanuel Lewis was there. He was just like traveling through and stopped to visit Snoop Dogg. He wasn't even in the episode, but they're friends. And he just
What
came
a
to visit them on the
weird-
set. I was looking at him and I'm like, is that Webster? Like holy crap, it's Webster. What the hell's he doing here? He was just showing out back talking to Snoop.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's such a interesting sort of area to be in when that's going on, because there are mountains of people like they had security pushing people back that are just trying to get in and get a glimpse of Snoop Dogg when he was on stage. So
Did I ever tell you my 50 Cent story?
no.
So
At
50
some point,
Cent-
we're gonna have to go back to how you like your story, but let's go to this first.
Okay, so 50 Cent was playing Halifax a long time ago.
Mhm.
And I was working in Privateer's Wharf. I was working in Purdy's Wharf, which are those two big white buildings right down on the waterfront.
Yeah,
The
the one-
fancy,
yeah,
the fancy towers.
Yep.
And I was working there. So Snoop Dogg was playing the Metro Center that night. So he rented out the New Bodies in Scotia Square, which is a building connected to the Metro Center.
Mhm.
And he rented out the whole gym.
This is 50 Cent.
50 Cent, so
Okay.
he could work out.
Yep.
So his passe was in there working out, and everybody's up against the windows. They're trying to see 50 Cent. So I'm like, whatever. I mean, he's famous, but I don't listen to his music.
Mhm.
So then one of my coworkers comes up to my desk and says, "Hey, do you know who's downstairs?" I'm like, "Who?" 50 Cent. I'm like, "What do you mean he's downstairs?" It's like, well, because each of these buildings had a very small private gym
Mhm.
that you had to work at the building to be allowed in.
Mhm.
Okay. So somehow either a lawyer or something got him a day pass. So 50 Cent was in this tiny little gym working out. And I'm like, well, I'm a member. I got to go down and see him just to say I saw him.
Mhm.
So I'm like, oh, do, go in,
Just going
Go
to the
get-
gym.
go to the gym,
Yeah.
get changed. No, not going to work out.
Yeah.
So, well, look at me. Of course I'm not going to work out. So then I go and I come around the corner and there he is. He's on a treadmill and he's running up a storm. Like he's really running. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I go to get closer to him. And all of a sudden, the literally biggest human I have ever personally seen stopped in front of me, like just a wall of a man.
Mhm.
Boom. And I'm like, oh, oh, excuse me. And I go to go around him. And this huge arm came sweeping down. Like it had snow on it. It was so high in the air when it came down. And he just puts it around me and goes, no. And I'm like, okay, I am going to get changed and leave now. Right. It's funny because there's a place in Halifax called the Deck Box, which is a really good D&D card store.
I've been there.
He had a contest to win a D&D giant figure.
Mhm.
And it said, tell me your best giant story. So everybody was writing and saying, I was an elf and I was fighting this. And I'm like, I'll tell you a real life giant story. No.
I just like the simplicity of no, like not happening. Like, I know what you're thinking. It's not happening. No.
He just shut me right down, right? This guy,
No.
he's like 6'8". He's
Wow.
probably almost 400 pounds. He's a bullet magnet. He's there to take bullets for Fitty. And just the sweeping arm, no.
No.
And so anyway, I won the giant figure.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway.
So where were you born? Where did Mike
I
start?
was born in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, actually in Halifax across the harbor. Grew up in Dartmouth, joined the military. So I spent a lot of time in BC because that's Navy land out there.
Yep.
And I stayed out there because that was the training coast. So that was the coast where we trained young officers because there's a lot more inland waters and things like that. Because Vancouver Island, you can navigate in there, which are beautiful places, the Gulf Islands. So I stayed out there because I wanted to be a trainer because I really like training. So I stayed out there a long time and then got out after an injury and then came back to Dartmouth. And I've been here ever since.
So your dad was a boxer too, right?
Yeah, Dad was a boxer. Him and his three brothers. So there were four brothers, and they were known as the McCluskey Boys, and they were a gang. So my dad grew up on a place he grew up in Charlottetown, and he grew up on a street that was so bad during the Great Depression and before that, it was called Hell Street. That was actually the name of the street was Hell Street. And so my dad,
Like on a map, it would say Hell Street.
No, it didn't, of course.
Okay,
not.
I was going to say.
You know what? Listen, don't take literally too literally. Okay, so
don't take literally.
yeah, come on.
All right, okay, cool. So don't get in the way of a good story.
Okay, so they used to fight. The brothers would fight before the main match to get nickels. The guys would throw at them when they would fight, right? So Dad and the brothers became fighters, and Dad was actually, I believe, either the welterweight or middleweight champion of the East Coast Navy. He joined at very young age the armed forces, and he was in from 1939 to 1945, so he did the whole war on corvettes. Wow. And sailed everywhere and fought everywhere. Wow. Dad was a fighter, and then he was pretty badly injured during the war and suffered multiple skull fractures, actually. So he couldn't fight anymore. When that happens to you, you're out. So he became the manager and trainer, and he was very successful. I think that's where I get my training background.
For sure.
He was very successful training fighters, and he was known as a really good fighter. When Dad was a young man, he was good. He won a Joe Louis, a trophy from Joe Louis, actually presented him with a trophy when he fought in Madison Square Garden.
Your father fought in Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, fought in Madison Square Garden.
Like as an undercard in a bigger fight, or?
Yeah. Wow. In this Joe Louis tournament.
Wow.
And we still have the trophy here, the actual trophy that Joe Louis gave him.
Wow.
And
that's
so
amazing.
Dad stopped fighting, trained his brothers for a bit, but then started training other people. And he had a guy named Dickie Howard. And Dickie Howard was the welterweight champion of Canada and had actual world title shots. He trained a fellow named Ralph Hollett, who was the middleweight champion of Canada, and trained Trevor Berbick, who was heavyweight and actually fought Muhammad Ali. So we have a lot of photos of Dad hanging out with Muhammad Ali.
That's amazing.
And so he trained. He was the first professional hockey fight coach in North America. So in 1976, Al McNeil, who was the coach of the Nova Scotia Voyageurs, which was the AHL farm team in Halifax, approached Dad and said, look, our guys are great, but they're chicken. They're scared. And this was the mid 70s when
fighting was cool.
Oh,
like,
hockey
like
was
that
fighting.
I mean, it still is for the most part, but back then it was really a huge part of the show.
Oh, yeah. So Dad took them and actually set up a gym in the old Halifax Forum and trained them how to fight.
Holy crap.
And trained them to like pull the jersey over someone's head and then just keep wailing, like taught them like real fighting techniques.
I feel like this is a Canadian heritage moment. It's just the guy that teaches the hockey fight is like your dad. What's his name?
Tom McCluskey.
Tom McCluskey.
And he actually, they won 2 Calder Cups the 2 years that Dad worked with them directly, 75, 76. And if you go look in the Nova Scotia Hall of Fame, you'll see the Nova Scotia Warriors posters, like the pictures, and Dad's there.
Wow.
And you just look at him and go, you're not a hockey player. He doesn't have the build for a hockey player. He was about 5'3", 5'4".
Yeah.
Probably
solid though if he's fighting that much.
Oh man. He got in a fight on our front lawn one day and he just cleaned the clock of the guy that went to fight him. Just cleaned his clock.
What was that about? Who was fighting him on his lawn?
Okay. So what happened was this. Mom was the mayor.
Okay. Yes, that's right. Your mother was the mayor, right?
Yeah. So what happened was I was sitting at home one day. I wasn't feeling well. It was high school or junior high. I can't remember which.
Mm-hmm.
And my Uncle Ace, who is my dad's brother, and Uncle Ace was a mean cat. You did not want to get in a fight with Uncle Ace. He was a bouncer until his 60s.
Wow.
And he was the old school bouncer of tap, tap, tap. Can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah.
Like one of those bouncers,
right?
Yeah, there was no quarter given.
Yes.
So what happened was he pulls in our driveway, and this kid, probably 20, 21, hauls his car in behind Uncle Ace and gets out. So there's been some sort of altercation on the road.
Yes.
So Uncle Ace is walking into our house, just ignoring this kid. And this kid's on the lawn screaming and yelling, "Come here, old man. Come on," blah. And I'm like, "Kid, you do not know who you're dealing with. Like you just got to get out of there." I'm saying to myself, because you're in mortal danger right now and you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, "Oh, come on, man." Uncle Ace is just standing there. And I'm like, he's going to do it. And then I'm like, Dad. Dad's like, "What?" And I said, "Uncle Ace is getting in a fight on the front lawn." And he's like, "Ah, Jesus Christ." So Dad puts on a pair of pants, goes outside, taps this kid on the shoulder and says, "Look, please get off my lawn. You don't," and he goes, "Oh, you shut up, old man. When I finish with him, I'm coming for you and I'm going to do this." And so I was watching my dad, and it was funny because my dad kind of turned away from the kid and he just sighed. He was sort of like, he was like, like when somebody's about to get down to work, where you're like, "Okay, I better start cleaning this room." Right.
Yeah.
So he just goes, and he taps the kid on the shoulder. Kid turns around, bam, right between the eyes. The kid staggers back, right? Doesn't go down. So Dad just so calmly walks up, pushes the kid's head down, pulls the jacket over, and just starts wailing.
Oh, wow.
And he's wailing on this kid. All traffic is stopped. We live on the busiest street in Dartmouth. All traffic is stopped. And everybody's watching. The mayor's husband beat a guy up on the lawn. So meanwhile, Buddy's friend, the girlfriend gets out and she's screaming, "Stop, what are you doing?" Buddy gets out of the back and his friend, okay, this is where you call bullshit, but this is a true story. Buddy gets out of the back seat. He doesn't have any arms. So he has no arms. So he gets out and he starts charging at Uncle Ace.
With no arms.
And hitting him with the shoulders. Now, Uncle Ace is a tough guy, but he's probably suspicious as shit. Superstitious.
Yeah.
So he's like, get away from me. He just kept pushing him away because he was like, what is this? This is like the weirdest thing that's ever happened. Meanwhile, Dad's pounding this guy. They're both gone to their knees now because Dad's getting tired.
Yeah.
So every time Dad hits him, he's like, have you had enough? I'll kill you. I'll kill your Have you had enough? So finally, he kind of stops responding. So Dad knows his work here is done.
Yeah.
So he just lets the guy go and they get in the car and they drive across the street to the convenience store to call the cops, obviously. This is pre-cell phone. Goes to call the cops and Dad comes back and goes, "Okay, Mike, you don't know where I am. You don't know what happened. I'm out of here." And I'm like, "Okay, Dad." Anyway, so Dad goes to leave, too late. Woo! Up come the police. And it's like, uh-oh, this is not going to go well. I didn't know things because the cops walk right by the hamburger-faced bleeding man. And they come up to my dad and they're like, "Tommy, what's going on, buddy? What's happening?" And Dad's like, "This guy came on my lawn. He threatened to kill me, threatened to kill my family, da-da-da-da-da." And they go, "Okay, Tommy, don't worry about it." So they go over to this guy and they're like, "Okay, you just have to go." And he's like, "No, I want to press charges. Could you, And the cop, I will remember this the day I die. The cop goes, "Take your beating and leave." Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that is so amazing. Oh, wow. So what did your mom think of all these shenanigans?
She didn't like that. She didn't like that. The
I can't
shenanigans.
imagine. I assume their relationship was pretty solid in its own way if he
Oh,
was
yeah, it
such a
was.
fighter and she was a politician. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know who had more gumption, my mom or, my mom's now 90
Mhm.
and people come to the house to ask questions about politics nonstop.
She was like a counselor too, right? Not too long ago.
Yeah. She was the oldest municipal councillor in Canada at
Wow.
one point. And she was mayor until Dartmouth got amalgamated with Halifax,
Mhm.
became one city. So she quit.
Mhm.
And then she lasted about 3 years out of service and then went, no, I need to get back in. And
Really?
then started representing Dartmouth. So she's the grand old lady of Dartmouth. If you just say her first name, which is Gloria,
Mhm.
everybody knows who she is.
Amazing.
She goes by one name, Gloria.
So being a public figure is kind of in your family, is in your
It
blood.
is.
Yeah.
It is. I actually, as we know, and the listeners may know, you and I used to do a show together. We used to
We
do
did.
Geeks versus Nerds, which I loved.
I miss it dearly. I miss it.
Oh, it
dearly.
was so much fun. It was so much fun.
We had so much fun on doing that show. For those who don't know, it was kind of if you're familiar with the debaters in CBC Radio, it was a similar concept where they would have a debate program, but all geeky subjects. So it'd be like Batman versus Boba Fett, and there'd be 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and it would be a debate style format. We go back and forth in rounds.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was a ton of fun.
There were some great shows. We did some amazing shows.
I had a really good run where I had like an undefeated streak for I think it was like 10 in a row that I didn't lose one. I was super proud of that, but it was a ton of fun. Like,
I remember you had I remember you had a huge run of wins.
My
you
first
and Heisler.
Yeah, well, usually we were on the same team, but sometimes when they broke us up, it got because he always brought some crazy costume.
Oh yeah,
he made to the environment, but
he's good.
He's
sure,
he's
awesome.
But when did? Sorry,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say because this is back when we were still doing it at Joker's, which was in the basement at Spring Garden Place. That was the first place we ever did the show.
Okay, that was before my time. I started at the Greywood.
Yeah, and which was the pinnacle of our show. Was
for sure. That was the best location by far.
Oh my God, it was good.
The last show was in like the basement of the Oasis, I think it was.
Yeah,
I remember doing I was doing my bit. It was my turn and I was talking. And as I looked out in the audience, I was watching a rat run between the chairs under people's seats and out the back. And I was like, oh, I better not react to that because I don't want to cause a panic. But it was literally just watching it go and seeing him sniff something. It would go here or go to there, run around the back.
I'll tell you the weirdest thing that happened to me during that show, and it literally fried my mind, was 3 of us. I think it was me, Lenny, and Missy.
Was this the last show?
What's that?
The last show or this one? The Joker
This show I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
So this one was at HowCon, and it was the 3 of us versus the staff from Interspace.
Yes.
So Teddy, AJ, and Cynthia. So it was us versus them. And we were doing the show. It was Yoda versus Dumbledore. Who's the worst father? Who's the worst father figure? So I was arguing Yoda because he was terrible. So anyway, that place used to be absolutely packed to the rafters. You couldn't fit another person in for that show.
Oh, it was the biggest thing at HowCon when they did it.
It was.
Yeah,
it was
like
the biggest event.
Attended. Yeah.
Yeah, even to the point where they had it on televisions in the hallway.
Yeah, I did. I got to do one of them. It was a blast, total blast.
The only thing was, it was too racy to leave on the televisions anymore because we were cursing so much that they're like, okay, we can't do this. We got to do it. So anyway, we were doing the show and there was a guy sitting on the floor in front of the first row. Big deal. Anyway, he has this Japanese anime doll with ball joints, those very expensive dolls. And he's got it sitting in his lap and he's making it clap. And I'm like, okay, each his own. No, I'm not going to make fun of you, buddy. So this is I guess I'm the only person who can see him. He's like a giant rabbit, right? Harvey, the giant rabbit.
Harvey.
Yeah. So I'm looking down at one point now, we're working away. And I look down and they've obviously had a fight because he's scolding the doll. Like he's literally like talking to the doll that it's done something wrong. And I'm like, okay. And I can see him. He's right in my line of sight. And I'm like, okay, all right, Mike, just keep going. Don't get distracted. So then, they do their bit and I turn to do the bit I wrote that I was the most proud of. It was killer. It was mwah, right? I look down as I start to speak. He's got the doll over his knee with its little dress pulled up. and the underwear, the little pantaloons pulled down, and he's spanking it to teach it a lesson. And I'm looking down at this, and my brain splits into two pieces. One piece is the do your gag, Mike.
Mhm.
Do your gag. The other piece is, do you see what the hell is happening in front of you? How can you keep acting like the world is normal? And so I'm just like watching him. And if you watch the tape, you see that I'm focused on something in the audience, and I do my whole bit. It's like I'm not even there. Like it's just coming out. And it was good. It was all right.
Yeah.
And I'm like this. And then I finish my bit and I take in the applause.
Yeah.
And I look down and he's like cuddling it like, it's okay now, honey. You've had your punishment. And as soon as the show is over, you see me jump up and go running across the other contestants going, did you see that? And I'm pointing in the audience.
Mhm.
And they're like, no, we have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, did I imagine this?
Just some fever dream. Just
I
some
know.
like I love you're like asking like where is he? Did you see it? Did anybody
see him?
nobody saw it?
Nobody
No
saw it.
evidence whatsoever.
The only evidence is my reaction shots
Uh,
to this going on in the audience. So I'm
That-
like, I mean, I know Hal Khan's known for drinking, but I guess I started early that day because
Yeah, well-
nobody else saw him.
That's well, I mean, someone who's been let's go back to so when did you start getting eventually involved with the con stuff? And where did Fat Apollo come from, I guess?
Okay, so I started getting involved actually at the same time as GVN.
Okay.
The two of them dovetailed together nicely because the first year of GVN was the first year of the new Hal Khan.
Mhm.
That was 2010.
Mhm.
So we started doing GVN in 2009.
Mhm.
And then in 2010, Jen Lamb and some of the organizers saw it and thought, okay, this is local. This is good. We want you to do this.
Mhm.
Right? Sorry, my phone's ringing.
No, it's all right.
I'm not going to answer it. I'm just going to mute it. Okay. So there was a connection between Hal Khan and us. And then I kind of made an extra connection because I got to know Jen and we're good friends. So that's when I had the shirt I always wear,
Yeah.
which is the Battlestar Galactica sheets from 1976.
So did you have those sheets already? You had the made
I had the
sheets?
shirt. I had
Okay.
the shirt.
Uh-huh.
And then what happened was I had extra material, and Hal Khan actually offered to make the cape for me,
Mhm.
like to give it to me as a gift.
Mhm.
And I'm like, great. So those two went together. So where does Fat Apollo come from? Well, Fat Apollo, if you watch the new season about new series,
Yes.
which is now old, you know,
Yes.
it's 10 years old.
They're already talking about rebooting it. So
Yeah,
it's
so that
that old
tells you
now.
something.
Yeah.
So Jamie, what's his name? Jamie Bamber. Jamie Bamber
I'm gonna
plays
say Barbara
Apollo.
Bamber, yeah.
Yeah, plays Apollo, good-looking man. But there's a scene, and I'm not spoiling because the show's ancient, where they've beaten the Cylons.
Mhm.
So what happens is they settle on a planet. Yes, the warship is still in, it's still
Mhm.
there. But now Apollo's getting fat because he doesn't have a battle anymore. So
Mhm.
he's like always eating, and he gets heavy, gets like bigger than me heavy.
Yeah.
And so there's a scene where he goes and meets his dad on the other Battlestar, the Pegasus,
Mhm.
and they're disagreeing about something. And the dad almost, turns to Jamie Bamber, goes, "Get your fat ass off my ship." So I'm like, "Hey, Fat Apollo." So then 2 episodes later, they cut to the scene of him walking out of the gym,
Yeah, I remember that.
completely ripped,
Yeah.
like 8-pack.
Yeah.
And he turns to Hilo and goes, "Don't let me get that fat again." And it was like, this is 2 days. And what it did
Well,
was
it's the future. They
It's
have
the
some
future.
special, pill you can take to make you not fat.
and he actually, his fat suit was Grace Park's pregnancy outfit. So when they had her be pregnant on the show,
They just
that
used
was the
fat suit.
bodysuit. So he wore the same bodysuit. So that's how Fat Apollo came about. And it kind of hit a nerve because the other thing I like about it is I am fat. I mean,
Mhm.
there's no lie about that. And I like having that in my name because it kind of takes away that stigma.
Mhm.
And what can happen is, if I get into an argument on the internet, like you can imagine, I never do.
Oh, I would imagine
And-
it's almost daily for you.
Yeah, and what happens is someone will always say, "Well, you're fat," and I'm like, "Way to go, genius! It's in my name.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you
Yeah,
got? You want
yeah.
to call me queer? Yeah, let's do it, baby. Let's check all the boxes."
All
Right? So, and it's funny because it's taking away the power of that word to hurt you.
I
And-
didn't realize that. That's very interesting. I thought it was just a riff on the Fat Apollo meme. I didn't realize that there was sort of a double meaning to it.
I'll be honest. At first, it was just a riff,
Yeah.
and then I started kind of thinking about it and having these things happen. I go, actually, there's a lot of power into having that in your name. That,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I just got into an argument with this guy who's a military medic who's really super high up in the alt-right prepper thing.
Ugh.
And him and I got into an argument
It's
online.
terrifying to me that people like that are involved in places of power, like the military, or like it's crazy.
Yeah. And it was funny because he kept mocking me for being heavy.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wait. And I was mocking him because he's like in the outback with a knife. You know, and he's like, and I'm like, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
What is happening in your, if you have a neighborhood where you're in the woods hunting something with a 12-inch knife, you should move.
Yeah. You are the danger in that neighborhood. Like you're not finding danger. You are the danger in that neighborhood.
Well, it's like I went to Florida back in university, and I really wanted to go to the Kennedy Space Center. Really wanted to go to Kennedy Space Center because I was a space kid. And so you can't just drive around. You get on a bus. They take you to this launch pad. You get out, take some pictures. So they take you around because it's a massive place.
Mm-hmm.
So I got out, and I was like taking pictures of the launch pad, and I looked over, and there was this area of grass that had a chain link fence around it and a sign. So I'm like, oh, there's something in there, like Buzz Aldrin pissed here or something, right? So I'm like, oh, that's very interesting, because the fence was only about this high.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I stepped over it, and I walked up to the sign, and the sign said, "Caution, poisonous snakes." And I'm like, what? And I'm standing there now, away from the edge of this lot, with a sign that says "Caution, poisonous snakes." So then the bus driver suddenly goes, "Hey, you shouldn't be in there. There's poisonous snakes." I said, "Yes, I just read the sign." So I'm thinking, how do I get out of here? So I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to do like the minefield thing where I'm going to step where I stepped coming in. So I started doing that, but the grass was tickling my ankles.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept jumping, thinking it was a snake biting me. So I'm doing these huge loping jumps across and I get out. And I said to the bus driver, I said, "Why is the sign in the middle of the area? Why is it on the edge?" And he goes, "That's nothing." He goes, "Last year, a guy got out and got eaten by an alligator on the tour." And I'm like, "What sort of hellhole do you live in?" And he goes, "Florida."
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, you're very like, one thing I find very interesting about you. I mean, obviously I've known you for a while now, and we always get along super well.
Oh yeah.
But you've always kind of been a champion for like geek and nerd causes and acceptance of all kinds in the community.
Yeah.
Which has always been something that I've found pretty amazing about you. But it's also made you a bit of a magnet when it comes to like defending, you know, people with sort of backwards ideas and stuff, because you're almost like the face of nerd culture in Halifax. When someone doesn't agree with it or some aspect of it, you're usually the one that goes to bat because you're the one that people recognize.
Well, and also, you know, I consider myself bulletproof. What are you going to do to me? You're gonna make fun of me online? Great. You got to share some embarrassing photos? I've already done it. I already had it made into postcards and sold them.
Yeah.
So there's and what are they going to do? My mom's not in politics anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom never cared.
Yeah.
They would, you know, if they said, "Do you know what your son's doing?" She goes, "No, I don't," because he's an adult.
Yeah.
But that leads back to when I was talking about when I was saying about when we used to film at Joker's.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the bar, My Father's Mustache. And I was in My Father's Mustache having a couple beer before the show because, you know, I like to have beer before the show. And I'm just having a few. And I was in costume. And I was talking with a bartender because I really like talking to bartenders and waiters. Because
me too. Yeah, they
just have great stories. And they're nice people usually. And a lot of people don't interact with them at all. They're just like this thing. So what happens is I'm talking to this guy and we're just yapping away. And this woman walks up who's about my age. And she walks up and goes, "Excuse me." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, and I always got questions about the outfit and stuff. Mm-hmm. But she comes up and goes, "Excuse me, are you related to Gloria McCluskey?" And I do look like her, and I do kind of sound like her. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yes, it's my mother." And she turns to me and points in my face and says, "I hate your mother."
Wow.
And I went, "What?" And she goes, "I hate your mother." And see, I had always been taught as a politician's kid, you just got to let it run off your back. Yep. You can't get into these things.
No.
But got a couple beer, getting ready for the show. And I said back to her, I went, "Fuck you." And she goes, "What?" And I said, "Fuck you." And she goes, How dare you speak to me like that? How dare you talk to me like that? And she walks away. And the bartender leans forward. He goes, is your mom Hitler?
like what why would you assume that saying that to somebody is not going to have some similar response backwards? Like, I hate your mom out of the blue. Like, you're not your mom. Like, what is the connection? You know,
because
like
they think that because she's a politician, you just got to take it.
Yeah.
You're going to take the insults and the screams and the yells and the idiotic comments. But I'm like, no, I don't have to. That's why I'm not a politician. You see, that's one thing I wouldn't go into. I wouldn't be a politician because I don't have the patience that my mother does.
I play a little game on social medias. Every time I see anything that Trudeau posts, I just click the comment and see how many I have to go down before it's something truly heinous. And it's usually no more than 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah.
It's like by 3 or 4, it's like, I hope you were raped and murdered. And I hope your wife gets like taken by the it's crazy. It's beyond insane. And people they think there's some autonomy because you're a public figure that you can just say whatever you want, social media or in person, apparently. And that's fine.
Yeah, that's one thing, you say about defending the community. We have a big thing here in Halifax where the Halifax Library stocked a book, which is really...
It's a big issue right now.
Yeah, really actively harmful to trans individuals.
So, before we go into that, you moderate the HalCon discussions and stuff online now, right? Yeah. Yep. So these issues that are geek culture related, because HalCon disassociate themselves from the library because of this. So you're kind of deep into that in a way.
Well, yeah. And so what it is that HalCon's website, they discontinued it being like a social website, and I took it over so that we wouldn't lose the community. I mean, it was something like 17,000 people. So I took it over and made it independent from HalCon. So we still discuss all the issues, but I have zero impact on HalCon. I will go to HalCon and host shows for them, do baby races, all that good stuff. But I have no impact on the board of directors, and I'm not an official person at all. So I'm friendly to HalCon.
Yes.
But I'll call them out if something's wrong. So I'm great pride that they did this, because my whole life I really think I was a right to read absolutist, meaning that every book, you should never not have a book. You beat them on the landscape of ideas. That's how you beat people.
Yeah.
But in this case, the book is so egregiously wrong. It's going to harm trans children.
Do you want to describe the book?
It's a book called, I don't even remember, but it's a horrible, horrible book. And it talks about how transgender women, meaning men that have become women, are displacing real women in the world. So this is another example of misogyny, where men are replacing women in women's spaces. So that if a trans person uses the bathroom, that's an act of aggression against women.
Wow.
Because it's
that's
radical.
Quite a radical stance. My God.
Yeah, it's called TERF, which is trans exclusionary radical feminism, which I've learned about in great detail.
The term has been used a lot relating to J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. And the funny part is I do have one of my degrees is a minor in women's studies. So I kind of know where they're coming from when they come at you with the radical feminism.
Yeah.
And so the book actually, you see, and this is the problem with the book. If it was a book that was, we hate trans people. Okay, well, then you can make a call on that. That's, that's the same as having a book saying Jews run the world, or, African Canadians should go back to Africa. I mean, they're appallant repel of ideas that normal people don't hold.
For sure.
Right. Yeah. But this book, where it goes over the line is it actively promotes conversion therapy.
Yes, I was aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And conversion therapy is illegal in Canada. So you literally have a book that's being marketed to parents who are probably confused about their trans kid, because it's a big step when this happens, because your whole life changes because you have a certain path for your child. And suddenly, if you know anything about the LGBTQ community, they're going down a path that's going to be tough. And I mean, really tough. And so anytime there's anything that's a barrier or allows people to have prejudice, that's a problem. And especially if you've got a book that's going to parents that say, no, you can't let them dress as women. You can't give them hormone replacement therapy. You can't do these things. You have to wait.
Mhm.
And it's study after study after study has shown that transitioning at an early age is so much healthier than transitioning when you turn 30.
Mhm.
Because if you're transitioning at 7 or 8, your body hasn't undergone the changes yet. And body dysmorphism is a major thing in the trans community. You know, imagine seeing you're not in the body you want to be in.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can tell I take this is something I take very seriously.
No, it's a heavy subject, but it's one that needs to be discussed for sure.
So the thing was, and this is where the point is, the problem with the library is this: they bought the book with no research. They just literally looked at a book list and went, "Hey, this is a top seller. Let's buy it." So they never looked into what was the book, what is the controversy about the book, does it add anything to the knowledge about trans people? And the answer is no to all of those. So they bought the book, and the reason they bought the book was because people from outside Nova Scotia, TERFs, petition libraries to buy these books, and the library, who is trying to be a good player, a good actor, like fair to everybody, says, oh, a bunch of people want this book, we should order it. Right. Yeah. But imagine if you had a book that purported to help you with an autistic child. And it's not just because they do have books that say autism isn't real, not real. It's bad chemicals. It's drinking milk after midnight. It's one of those things. Right. So, okay, if you say it doesn't exist, that's wrong, but you can have your opinion. But then the second half of the book is what you got to do to your kid is you got to desensitize them to noise. So you want to put them in a room and turn the music up as loud as you can and leave them in there for 7 hours a day. Right? Yeah. Torture your child.
Damaging and torturing. Yeah.
Right. Because you're going to fix them. I mean, Ben Affleck did that movie, The Accountant, where he was the autistic man. And his dad tried to convert him by doing that. And that's what the book does. And it's now that it's in the library, and this is the frustrating part, the library will not back down. Period. End of statement.
What is their stance on it? Just that it should be a book. Everybody should have access to it?
We don't censor books. Okay. Because here's the point. They make decisions every single day what book they buy. Every day there's somebody going, we should buy this book, we should buy that book. And there's lots of books that they never pick. Right? I mean, I can guarantee you that if books about Black history are being bought, it's run through some people to say, is this cool? Is this not cool? How are things here? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Even for LBG non-T, they run the books through, but because it's trans, they didn't. They just bought it. And now they will not admit they made a mistake because to them, freedom of reading is an absolute. So once the book's on the shelf, it will not be removed.
Interesting.
Which is just admit you made a mistake. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, that seems like incredible. Like that sort of behavior, and it happens a lot. I notice in big companies when they just dig their heels in. Lately, it seems to be getting better, but they will just dig their heels in and push back in almost this faux righteousness instead of just admitting that they made a mistake.
Yeah, and that's it. You see, and I get where they're coming from because I have always believed, if it's an idea, it has the right to see the light of day.
For sure.
But now, in the world we live in now, you've got a lot of false actors.
Oh, for sure.
Who are playing we just want to know the truth and we just want to do this. And it's a whole thing about, you've probably seen the little graphic about it, about you can't be tolerant of intolerance.
No.
And the moment you keep being tolerant of intolerance, they just keep pushing it. Yeah. Right? Like they will say, well, listen, you've got to listen to me about why I hate trans people. I have a right to tell you I hate trans people. Okay, well, you're an idiot and you're an evil person. But why do my tax dollars have to go to buying a book that promotes an illegal activity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
That's sort of it's mind numbing. That's sort of the argument, but also this sort of like this displacement of women. Like what drives me nuts is when this issue came up, it like, I mean, trans issue has been around for a really long time, but for like, I'd say it's kind of come to the forefront in the past 10, 20 years in a way.
For sure is.
really fallen right into like the middle of the public sort of eye. And I remember when it was really like people were discussing the things a lot and people were arguing online about everything. And it was like, if some guy goes into the women's bathroom, I'm going to beat the hell out of him. And I'm like, in my response, whenever I heard anybody say something like that, it's like, what do you think is stopping someone from doing that now?
Yeah, exactly.
If a guy wanted to walk into the women's bathroom and it cost a woman, it's a door. The fact the sign is there doesn't change anything. If someone's like a monster and they want to go in and do that, they're going to do it regardless of whether they claim to be whatever gender. And the thing about that as well is like the life of someone who is trans or in quotes for these people's arguments pretends to be trans to get into these sort of situations. It's not an easy one. So like you wouldn't paint a target on your back to just be able to go do that if it's something that you're illegally going to go do anyway. And like, so these arguments are insane. If you put any thought into them, they fall apart. But people don't put any thought into them.
It's the same old story because I remember in the 80s, there's still being editorials in newspapers saying gay people cannot teach children. They are a hazard. They cannot be in the schools. We've got to hunt them down. Remember, I was in the military where it wasn't long ago that being gay was a one-way ticket out of the military. They actually had, investigators that tried to hunt down gay people in the military.
Wow.
Really? I mean, CSIS,
CSIS had like people looking for signs of homosexuality.
Yeah.
And,
God, yeah. Entrapping people. They even had get ready for this.
Like sting operations that would come on to people and stuff. Oh my God. That's
and
crazy.
they had a device called, get ready, the fruit machine. And what it was a device like a Scientologist e-meter that you would hold, and it would determine whether you were a fruit or not. Complete pseudoscience.
Based on what?
Based on the magic fruit machine.
Oh my God. That is so, it's crazy because people like, when it comes to this sort of stuff, like when people talk about slavery and they talk about, especially lately with the residential school being in the spotlight, the stuff wasn't that long ago. Like the last residential school closed down in the 90s. Like some of the stuff happened in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s. Like it wasn't that long ago.
Nope.
Like it's crazy when people are like, oh, this is a long time ago. It's like, it wasn't. It really wasn't. It was in my lifetime.
Yeah. And you see, this is the whole thing, that this manufactured outrage about trans people, it started in the UK. The UK is the center of this. And the major newspapers are running daily stories about the trans threat. The Boris, what's his name?
Johnson?
Sorry. I was thinking Yeltsin. Boris Johnson is cutting funding to trans people. They're making the basically persona non grata. They're making it that they have to wait years to get in to see doctors because it's an easy thing to get the old conservative people all worked up about. Because all they do is they slap a picture of a man in a dress and go, do you want him in your daughter's dressing room? So it becomes this panic. But here's the thing. The same thing happened in the 70s with African Canadians. The same thing happened in the 80s with gays. The same thing happened in the 90s when it came to gay marriage. So what they're doing is they just keep manufacturing conservative talking points to scare you. They're coming to get you, Barbara, right? Like they do that. And the thing is, they have to keep going after more and more marginalized people because gays are very, very, very accepted now. Yes, there's still problems, but it's not. But here's the frustrating part is that I see gay people saying, yeah, but they're trans.
Oh,
like there's this whole group of lesbian people that are like, no, trans women are a challenge to us and we can't have them in our spaces. And you're thinking, man, and I talk to these people, I say, do you know what you're doing? And they're typically young gays who have not had the challenges that older gay people who didn't see an entire generation killed by AIDS.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why there are no AIDS. That's why there's no gay seniors because they're all dead. Yeah. Right. So they get through it. And I'm like, you're pulling up the ladder. You have all these rights, you have all these abilities, and you're looking down the ladder at the trans people and going, nope, not you. Yeah. And I said, you're doing the old, I'm all right, Jack. The old British expression of I've got mine. Yeah. You're on your own. And it's organized. I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I live this stuff.
No, but it's always been a distraction tactic. It's always been us versus them. Like it's always, that's the first one they go to. I mean, look what Trump did and all that in the States. and everything else. It's always us versus them. That you find some external enemy to blame all your problems on. I mean, Hitler did it too, and not to make that comparison and say they're the same. Because
I get it. Yeah.
But I know, but it's when you're trying to rally your people towards some cause, the best way to do it is to say, there's the enemy. We need to unite against them. And if there's not someone easily nearby, like the Soviets or whatever, you have to turn inward or find something that you can scapegoat.
Well, I mean, just look in Canada with Islam, right? Like the people that it was at the Toronto Sun. The Toronto Sun was running. They did a collage of their anti-Islam just before those poor people were killed by the car.
Yeah,
they did a collage of what the Sun has been running, and it is foul. And I didn't even know it existed because you and I, we don't peruse those publications.
No, God,
they hold nothing for us. It's right-wing garbage. It's going in the garbage. I don't care about it. Same with the National Post. I mean, the day after they discover those kids, which was a secret that everybody knew, all those bodies, Rex Murphy comes out with a column about things weren't so bad. These
read
young
the room,
people.
you friggin' idiot. My God.
And he's like, do you know who's really discriminated against? White men. And I'm like, just die. I hate to say that about anybody, but just die already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not to go off on an SJW sort of thing, but we've had the floor for a long time. White men have had the floor for 400, 500 years, longer than that, but a long time. And the world's a mess. So, I was telling this to someone the other day. So I just can't wait. Like, it's not going to be in my lifetime, but I can't wait until everyone's some weird shade of brown.
Yeah.
And, and none of this shit matters anymore because, man, oh man, it's crazy. We're all just fucking people, and that's all it boils down to. And it's amazing how much people, like I always say, that if people didn't care about things that didn't affect them, the world would be such a better place.
Yeah.
Everybody that cares about abortion is not a woman, that thinks that abortion should be wrong is either not a woman or a woman that has like 6 kids already or a couple kids or whatever, or some super right person that it benefits them to have the stance. Yeah. Like a religious person or whatever. So or gay people or whatever, it doesn't affect you. It's nothing to do with you. Let live and let live.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's hurting anybody. Just leave them alone. And I know I'm not making a controversial statement by saying that, but it's something that I can't believe that more people don't adopt.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I'm I'm almost 60. Thank you. I don't look it. No, thank you.
My mom just turned 60, so you can be my dad. Yeah, you can be my dad.
Ooh. But I and that's what gives me hope is the young crowd, the young people coming up behind us. Yeah. Our time's done. We've done all we can, and I'm watching the young people now that are they're not even getting fooled by it. And it's funny to watch all of this Facebook propaganda, all these Twitter memes. Are not for young people because they're not stupid.
No, exactly.
Like they know, like this generation is not us, but them, and before you too. These are people that grew up on the internet. They know how memes work. They know Tumblr. They know, everything to do with what is being done. So they see a meme and they just mock it.
Yeah.
And I think back to that incredible when Trump was having that rally and all the K-pop.
Right.
Juggalos. Talk about 3 divergent groups came together to ruin his event. They just kept reserving ticket after ticket after ticket. And he thought there was going to be 200,000 people there. They laid out more money for Jumbotrons. They paid for all these chairs and nobody showed up. It was truly a beautiful moment.
And it's a great example of what the world is capable of now in a different way of fighting back. But you're right. You make a good point about that. It's like Fox News isn't tailored towards kids. No. They're tailored towards not even their parents, like their grandparents. Yeah. Like that's really like get scared. The world's different than it was in the 50s when you were a kid. Yeah. So get terrified.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's commercialized hatred. And you look, I know you've read a lot of books. It's like 1984, the Minute of Hate. Yeah. That's what it is. Let's hate some people that aren't like us. That's what it is. Unify.
So do you feel like some of the stances you've taken on these sort of things, do you feel like growing up in sort of geek culture, because you were a bit of a nerd growing up, like you were a super sci-fi guy and all that sort of stuff too, right?
Yeah.
I assume comics fit into that as well.
Yeah, it did. It did.
What were the comics that you read when you were young?
Okay, so I got hardcore into comics in the early 80s.
Mhm.
So in the
Good
early
time.
80s,
Good time.
oh,
Yeah.
I've sold it all, which breaks my heart.
Oh,
But what was happening was that was when there were the big changes in the industry coming, like big changes.
yeah, like Watchmen and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, so Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Mhm.
That was what got me back into comics. I read comics as a kid. I didn't really collect.
Mhm.
I collected some Hulk comics, but I was and remain a big DC guy. I like Spider-Man. I like Superman.
Mhm.
I like Batman. I like the whole Justice League.
Mhm.
I think Superman is an incredible hero because he can do anything and he chooses not to. So I think
Exactly.
that's the moral ambiguity that he has to face.
On the head. That's the
What
Superman.
makes it exciting.
That's the Superman movie I want to see that I've yet to
Yeah.
see.
Because there's Superman. He goes, "Who do I save?"
Yeah.
Because you can imagine he is continuously hearing it. And then we look at The Boys
Mhm.
and we see what Superman could be like.
Yeah,
Homelander is Superman,
for sure.
and he's a jerk.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
So
I think The Boys is more reminiscent of what the world would be like if superheroes really did exist, because they would be
Yeah.
modern day celebrities. Like if the
Yep.
Kardashians had superpowers, they wouldn't be good people.
no,
They wouldn't be saving people for the sake of saving people.
No, and I mean that's why I love that show so much. It was just really good that way.
Yeah.
But I was a big DC fan, and it was basically because of Crisis of Infinite Earths,
Mhm.
because that was the first reset of a major company.
Mhm.
Like now you're used to it. Secret Wars, Civil War. There's all these resets
it's all
happening.
wars and crises in DC.
Yeah. Yeah. So with DC, that was the first time they ever did it.
Yeah.
And people don't understand how groundbreaking that was. That was like nothing anyone had ever seen. And they were smart because what they did was they put the Crisis through every comic.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to spoil Crisis on Infinite Earth because it's 40 years old.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, go ahead.
Yeah, so
yeah.
there's the big character in Crisis is the Flash.
Yeah.
Because the Flash is producing the power and stuff like that. But what they did, which was brilliant, was the Flash travels through time to say goodbye to all his friends
Mhm.
before he dies.
Yeah.
So Flash saves the universe.
Yes.
Okay. Because he as they say, what's your name, Barry Allen? I just want to run fast.
Yeah.
I want to be and there's this mantra of his. So what they did was, for months before this happened, they had him popping into random comics.
Mhm.
So you'd be reading Batman, and Batman and Robin are sitting in the Batcave talking about something. And all of a sudden, in one panel, the Flash is like, "Bye, Bruce." And he's gone. And you're like, what the hell was that? He showed up in the Haunted Tank of all comics. Right? So it was in everything.
Yeah.
This Crisis. And so it really drew me in. And that's the one with the really famous cover of Superman holding the dead Supergirl.
Yeah. The
yelling.
two biggest deaths from that were Supergirl and the Flash.
Yeah, it was incredible. And you didn't expect it. And they were brutal about killing off people. Like
it was funny how they took something that was such a their main purpose for that was to just streamline their books, because they had all these different parallel universes and it was hard for people to follow. So we'll put it all in the one continuity and do this big event to do it. And it's for the chain of events that kicked off it. Although unfortunately, I feel like it opened a door with DC that now they just reboot the universe every 10 years. And if you like continuity like I do, it's really hard to tag along to explain. Like the Superman they have now is Superman from before, and there was a different Superman, but then he died and this Superman took his place and he's a kid, but there's a clone of the other Superman. It just gets
it gets crazy. Well, that's when they did the New 52, as they called it, where there was another reset.
And then there's a rebirth, and then they keep doing it, and it's getting annoying.
See, I bought comics all through my Navy career. That's when I was buying comics. And there were local shops, but they weren't like they are nowadays. Like nowadays, they're, you look at Strange Adventures or Cape and Cowl, and they can get you anything from anywhere in the world. You just say, hey, can you order this for me? So what I started doing was I actually started ordering direct from a distributor in the States, Mile High Comics.
Oh, yes. I remember the ads for those in every Marvel comic.
Yep.
Marvel had them ads everywhere.
So I used to buy from them. So I would get an order sheet, like a store would.
Yep.
And I would order, and that was the years of ordering multiples, where Killing Joke. I had 10 copies of Killing Joke.
So did you know when that was coming out that it would be as what it was?
It's a gamble. I bought other stuff that was garbage.
Oh, okay.
The second it touched my boxes, it was worth a penny. right? But and then they started doing the whole different covers and holographic covers, and so it really started to get diluted. So
That's around the early 90s, late 80s.
yep.
probably,
So
yeah.
there was that brief period in the 80s, like there was Miracle Man, there was some amazing comics
Oh, yeah.
that actually held their value really well. And then the 90s just blew the market off. It just collapsed. Nobody, anything you bought was worth nothing the minute you touched it.
It's funny that you bring that up because I always tell the story. Cal told it to me at Strange Adventures. He's the owner of Strange Adventures. For those who don't know, it's a comic store in Halifax. It's where I get my comics at now. And when I was a kid, my uncle gave me Spider-Man 1, the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, and I was like, oh, cool, like this is sweet. I love this comic. As the years went on, people would always say, I got a Spider-Man #1. This could be worth something someday, and it's that comic. And as the years pile on, one day I'm talking to Cal, and I'm like, how many people? Because people ask me, they'll be like, hey man, I got the Spider-Man #1 by Todd McFarlane. How much do you think that's worth? I'm like, honestly, like $2, like it's not that much. So Cal goes, man, he goes, everybody comes in with that comic thinking it's worth something, but they print it. Same with the Death Suit Man. They print it like 1 million of them, like 10, 2. They're not rare. They're everywhere. So he goes, I got a long box. And when people bring them in and be like, this got to be worth something, he goes, I'll pull out a long box of like that fits 500 comics. And every one in the long box is the same comic. And I'd be like, this is how, I have 500 of them.
See, and that's what it was, is that you had to be really cagey and figure out, but everything was an event. Wolverine joins the X-Men, everything was an event. So the only way to make money was to really find those gems that nobody was talking about. So I used to buy a lot of Dark Horse comics when they were first starting up. So I was in a lot of independent comics.
Excellent.
Because you never knew what you were going to hit. Because, for example, Steve Rude, who went on to be a big artist.
I love his art. He's amazing.
He did Nexus and Badger.
Badger, yes.
Yeah. So Badger was basically a drunk Wolverine.
That was Malibu, though, wasn't it? Like
it may have been Malibu. I don't remember.
Yeah, but Malibu got bought by DC later.
So he was doing these comics, and I didn't know who he was going to become. I just really liked Badger because it was really crazy.
Yeah.
And back in the day, the lady I was seeing, my fiance actually, she would go to comic book conventions and get me things. And remember, this is the 90s and 80s when there weren't many women going to conventions.
Yeah.
And so she would go and she could sweet talk these artists into anything. And because she's an attractive young lady. So she went and met with Steve Rude. And I said, look, if you're going there, see if you can get me a drawing, right? Get me a drawing, right? Which you would never get now from Steve Rude, just walking to his table.
Oh, for sure.
Can you do me a drawing? Right. So I get this phone call. I'm in British Columbia. I get this phone call from her going, hey, I got somebody who wants to talk to you. And I'm like, hello. And it's Steve Rude. He's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, good. He goes, hey, I hear you want a drawing. I go, yeah, I'd like the Badger. I want a picture of the Badger drinking a beer. And he goes, oh man. He goes, yeah, I'll do that. So he did this big drawing of Badger drinking a Keith's with the proper Keith's label and everything. And
wow.
He had a big thought balloon, said, love that Keith's. And so I got that. I got a Paul Chadwick.
Oh, wow. Concrete. Yeah.
Yeah. I had one from Concrete where he was overlooking Peggy's Cove.
Wow.
And then I got some.
I love that he kept the Nova Scotia as bend to these. It's fantastic.
So here's the funny part about that. So she got me all these. I had them framed. They were original art. The years go by. We're not together anymore. And so, I'm married with a new family. And I'm like, okay, I got to sell my comics. I'm going to sell my comics because I'm not doing anything with them anymore. And I was in Halifax, so called Callum and asked him if he wanted to come and look. It was a pretty significant collection. And he's like, yeah, I'll come to your place. So I sold him all the artwork, and I sold him. I had an original hardcover Watchman signed by Miller and the other guy. Had
Gibbons.
Yeah, I had a whole bunch of good stuff. I also had a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
Where he just looked at it and went garbage.
Yeah.
But you know what the funny part is? He bought that artwork. And guess who his wife is?
Who?
That woman who bought the artwork for me.
Oh.
Isn't that wild?
Wow, really?
Yeah. So
really? Cal's wife?
Yeah.
Wow.
She was in the Navy with me.
I didn't know that.
Oh, she's a great person. I won't say her name because of her job.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, but no, she's a great person.
Oh, no, I've met her many times. They did some projects for Cal for they get local artists to do art things for him for like his birthday and stuff. And she contacted me to do some of those before.
Yeah,
so.
she's great. She's
Oh,
really
that's a small world. Wow.
Yeah, we reconnected through HowCon because she
Yeah.
often works the table.
Mhm.
So again, no animosity, just
Yeah.
relationships don't always work.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
anyway, so that was the funny part about him buying that artwork is
That's
that
hilarious.
his wife is the person who bought that artwork.
That's hilarious.
yeah.
Wow, man. Small world.
Yeah, totally.
Crazy. Cool. So yeah, so you mentioned you're married. You're not currently, I take it.
No, I'm not currently married.
No.
No.
And you have a couple of children?
Got 2 kids, got
Mm-hmm.
Harley, who's 21, and Grace, who's just turning 20.
Ah, wow.
And Harley is not named after Harley Quinn.
Well, it would have
it's-
been before that, I assume, because
Yeah.
no, I guess it could have been. The Batman animated series 93, right?
Yeah.
Probably
It was just
1993?
it's because her grandfather's name is Harley.
Oh, that's
And there's
great.
always been a Harley in the family.
That's super cool.
So that's why.
What do they do?
Both go to school.
Oh, excellent.
Yep. So Harley is at Nova Scotia Community College, and Grace just transferred from Acadia to St. Mary's.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the point I was getting to before, which I just reminded to circle back to, was about the sort of the championing of like talking about the trans issues and sort of the gay issue in the back is in relating to like the geek subculture. That do you think like growing up, being a part of it to the level you were, like with the comics and that sort of stuff, that gave you feeling like you're a little like, because I mean, back even when I was young, being into comics wasn't cool.
No.
Like walking around the Batman t-shirt wasn't a cool thing.
No.
Not that it's cool now, but it's certainly normalized. And it wasn't normalized back then.
No.
Do you feel like give you some, like maybe that could be some impetus as to why you would feel more related to that? Or do you think it's just more of a cultural shift that
I think it comes from my mom. My mom has always been a real underdog, fight for the underdog sort of
Yeah.
person.
That's
And
sweet.
with me, I joined the military, which when you know me, you're kind of like, how did you join the military?
I was quite surprised when I learned you were in the Navy. for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I was a lieutenant commander. I was a senior officer,
Yeah.
which people just go, "What? You are not what I think a naval officer is." And it's like,
Mhm.
well, I was unusual as a naval officer, but
Mhm.
see, what happened with me was I joined the military, and the military is a military, right?
Mhm.
There's crap that happens in there, and you got to take garbage, and it's just part of the training.
Mhm.
But especially, I was a diesel mechanic, a stoker. And I switched to being an officer after 6 months. So I went to the officer corps.
Mhm.
And the officer corps, the training was terrible. It was terrible. It was mainly hazing. It wasn't good training. Yes, you knew how to drive a ship afterwards, but basically there was a culture of abuse
Mhm.
that people would yell at you. They would hit you.
Mhm.
They treated you like crap, to just treat people like crap. Outside the training room in the place called NOTC Venture, Naval Officer Training Center Venture, they used to have the pictures of every class.
Mhm.
And as people failed, they would draw black X's over their faces.
Wow.
So it was really brutal. And I went through this training, I got to get into training to fix this
Mhm.
because this is not healthy.
Mhm.
So then I became a trainer. I was still a Mars officer,
Mhm.
which is a ship driver, but I specialized in training because frankly, nobody wanted to do the job. Training was seen as a bit of a dead end.
Mhm.
Like that's not what somebody who wants to be an admiral goes
Mhm.
into.
Yeah.
But I really felt strongly about it. So I was able to assemble other trainers around me that felt the same way. And we really changed the culture of the training. And we made it more about being successful and being a good officer and having that moral core. And it's not appropriate to treat people that way. And we made a big difference in the way we trained people. And it was great because I got to train the first group of female Mars officers, of which one is a Commodore now.
Wow.
So
That's really cool.
yeah, so it was very rewarding, very tough job. It's I tell fun stories about it, but there's some times that it's not a fun job.
Oh God,
It's-
no, I can't
it's
imagine.
really not fun.
I mean, I think people glorify the Navy in this way that you're just all getting drunk on a ship going to like Mediterranean ports and having fun all the time. But it's really
Yeah.
long times at sea, and
Oh,
sea
yeah.
battles are not. I'm sure. I don't know if you've seen any action or much, but a sea battle would be terrifying. Like
Yeah.
if things go wrong, you're in the ocean. You're not walking to
You're
safety.
dead.
You're done.
You're dead. Yeah.
You know.
And that's the thing is that you're also working in an incredibly hazardous environment
Oh,
all
yeah.
the time. Even though
Yeah.
you're like, you're on a ship, you can fall over the side and die.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you fall over the side,
Yeah.
and they don't know where you are for an hour, you're dead. They're
Yeah.
not coming back for you.
It's like
So-
the most popular form of death on cruise ships. This is pleased husbands just toss their wives overboard.
Yep, that's right.
It's like
And
they
then-
fell, whatever. What can you do? You don't have a camera, like who can prove it?
Yeah.
So-
So, the Navy was great. I enjoyed it. It's going through some incredibly tough times right now with
Mhm.
the sexual abuse. They have not fixed that. And it's because they don't have the political will to do it. They're
Mhm.
not willing to go in and go, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Because there is really an old boy network,
Still
there is.
persistent.
I mean, just look at Vance got accused of sexual harassment, and an admiral who I know personally, an admiral and a general went out golfing with him to
Ugh.
make sure he was okay.
Ugh.
And it just turns out that the general is in charge of the investigation of him.
Oh, well, that's fair. That's fair, not unbiased. Well, it makes a lot of sense for me to hear you describe sort of the path you went in the military, because that, like, the way I see you interacting with sort of the nerd circles at conventions, that's very reminiscent of that. Like, you're certainly,
Oh, thanks.
well, it's true, man. You've always been sort of a defender of that sort of thing, and it means a lot. And I always see you rubbing elbows all across the convention and making sure everybody's okay, and you're always there to kind of keep an eye on things.
And I try to do that because you've been at the conventions where at the end of every con, I talk about mental health challenges and saying, look, you may have some mental health challenges, and sometimes it seems that people that are in the con circuit have more than normal. We always joke that depression is the comedian's disease. That I say to them, look, you're going to feel down because you've just been in an incredibly accepting environment for 3 solid days. You're with your friends. You get to dress the way you want. You get to talk the way you want. You're the majority for the first time in your life.
Exactly.
And you're going to walk out and go back to all that same stigma. And yes, it's more accepted, but still people, call you faggot as they drive down the street because it's funny.
Yeah.
And for young people, that can really hurt them.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm like, look out for yourselves, realize you're going to be down, connect with your friends. If somebody's not at the weekly gaming tournament, call them, see what's going on, and support yourself and know that you're going to win. Like, you're the majority, you're taking history. When you and I, we think back, would we ever have thought that basically movies were going to be Marvel? That's it. Just Marvel. Basically, that's all there is.
Nope. I'd say this. I think I said this before. I said, like, I've always been a huge Thanos fan. If you would have told me 20 years ago I'd see Thanos in a movie, I'd say you're crazy.
Oh,
If you would have told me I'd see Rocket Raccoon and Groot in a movie, I'd be like, you're crazy. And they become a cultural icon in themselves. They just announced a big Guardians of the Galaxy video game coming out.
yeah, I saw
So,
that.
like, yeah,
Cool.
it looks, actually, a friend of mine is working on it in Montreal. So
It looks great.
It looks really good. I messaged him today because he told me to keep an eye out for something Marvel related that I'll like. And I saw the announcement. I was like, oh man. But yeah, like all these things that have sort of filtered in. It's funny. It's interesting to bring that up because I always thought like of conventions in a way that like we all just get to celebrate the nerdy things we like, and that's it. But I never really put it together in the way that like this is an escape where I don't have to feel like normal society is going to judge me or make me feel bad about the thing I like because it's nerdy or whatever.
Yeah.
I really hate that shows like Big Bang Theory are the ones that people hold up to. I know that people hold up to sort of normalize geek culture, and people ask me about that. And they're like, "You must love that show." I'm like, "I hate it."
I hate it.
It makes people that are into nerdy things look like socially inept. Like you can't have a girlfriend, or I mean, all the characters in the show do eventually get girlfriends and wives and married. But it's like, a girl goes into a comic shop and all the nerds are like amazed there's a girl in there. And it's like, I get that this is funny to normal people, but it's sort of hurtful to geek culture because it makes us look like we're not accepting of, girls being into comics, which is, in my experience, any comic person that I know is super into that.
Yeah.
Like super accepting, like girls are all over, like, I mean, there are people on the internet and whatever that's a whole other can of fish, but most people generally are very accepting.
Yeah. And I'm glad Big Bang Theory. I used to watch it for about the first season because there were references and I'm like, oh yeah, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And then I realized the references didn't mean anything.
No, and that's the joke. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just that they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Haha, look at the nerds. And it's like a sideshow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we have we think about, like I was saying about the majority, you probably remember at the end of HowCon, we typically take over Boston Pizza and have a big party in Boston Pizza.
It's a lot of fun.
I
love watching the normal people that just cut, like I use the term normal in quotes, but just come in to get pizza and they're looking around like they walked into like, the circus. They have no idea what's going on.
Well, we called it the How Cantina.
Oh yeah.
It was like the Star Wars
the
Cantina.
Yeah. Everyone's in costume.
and I go there usually early and set it up and get ready. I host it.
Mhm.
And I remember one year we did it, and there were these two guys, few beer in them, and they started making fun of the way I looked because of
Mhm.
this costume, and they were being all snickery and stuff. And I'm like, okay, guys, whatever, you live your lives. And they kept like calling me over to make little comments. It's like, you're not that funny, guys. But
Mhm.
so then the room started to fill.
Mhm.
And it started to fill with a lot of Flynns. You know who the Flynns are.
Mhm.
And those people, and they don't put up with trash. Like, as you know, the person who cosplays Odin and Master Chief is a Master Chief. He's an actual chief from the Navy who
Mhm.
doesn't take shit from anybody.
Yeah.
And so these two are like getting a little multi.
Mhm.
And then I could see it that they started looking around and going, we're really in the minority here. Like
Mhm.
we are the ones that don't belong.
Mhm.
Right. And so, and some of, like you or some of the other cosplayers are big lads.
Mhm.
So they're looking at this going, oh my, I think we've bitten off more than we could chew.
Yeah.
And I remember these two guys and they're sort of sitting there and I said, you feeling a little uncomfortable, gentlemen? Maybe it's time for you to go. And they're like, okay. And they just walk out ashamed, right? Because they're like, we are in the minority. It's easy to pick on the geek when it's one of you.
Yeah.
But when it's 20 or 30 or 40 of them, and these are not what they think geeks are, which are 90-pound, skinny little, these are some gentlemen that are large, and some of the women are very accomplished as well.
For sure.
So it's funny to see that reaction when they're like, we're not in the minority. And Boston Pizza, people are like, well, wait a minute, that's a sports bar. Their number one weekend is HowCon.
Yeah.
They make more money during HowCon than any other weekend, including Canada Day, because we go down there and fill the place.
Yeah. That's amazing. No, you're right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like geek acceptance at those events has always been something I've been aware of, but I don't like usually I'm at my table and I don't get to get involved as much with the events. And I'd like to do more of that. I really want to, when things get back to normal, hopefully I'd like to not petition, but get some of those events to maybe do some of these live, like interview someone live.
Yeah.
At some of those shows. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah.
That's something I'd like to do. But yeah, I don't really get to get out and engage as much. One year I did during the convention that I was usually when I do this, I stay with John Roy. And I should have him on the show. Actually, it'd be great to talk to him about some of this stuff, especially GVN. But like they closed down the artist alley, so I packed up my booth and I just wandered around, and I was just stepping into different events, and one of them was there's like I think it was the Halifax Symphony was like playing music from and it was like one of the most transformative things I've ever sat in. It's just this room full of people, and you could feel the joy when the music hit, like when they did the Batman theme song from the 90s, and they did Sailor Moon theme song, like there was a medley, the Legend of Zelda theme, everything hitting all these nerd centers in your brain or all these nostalgia centers, and you could literally feel the whole room experiencing it at the same time. And it was like one of those events, like a big concert where you just feel the joy from everybody around you, just like experiencing and enjoying it at the same time. And I was like, that was the first big sort of like feeling that I was like, wow, this is like something much bigger than just buying t-shirts and meeting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the joy of HowCon. Is HowCon's one of the largest still volunteer run conventions now in North America. So there isn't corporate dollars behind it, because as you know, if you go to Fan Expo or San Diego Comic-Con, it has a corporate bent.
Oh yeah, that's
it's what it is.
Corporate sent, yeah.
It's here to make money. That's why they exist. Get you in, get you out, give me your money. Right. And it has its place. I mean, you're not going to get the Picard crew coming to Halifax. Yeah. So, if you want to see those people, you got to go to the big cons. But, I think HowCon has done a really good job. And so has Sci-Fi on the Rock, AtlanticCon, Ganderfest. I've got a new one booked for Toronto, which is a new Star Trek convention. I'm going to be hosting in Toronto. Yeah, it was supposed to be last year. RIP. Yeah. So we're going to do that. But they've done a really good job at getting some great guests in. And all of them have done, with a couple of exceptions, have gotten people that really like being at cons. They really enjoy, like, for example, Apollo, the original Apollo, Richard Hatch, I met him, and I mean, I'm wearing his face on my body. So I met him.
You call yourself Fat Apollo.
Yeah, I know. So I met him a couple of times. And I remember when I first met him, I'm like, okay, here's a guy. He was in a 1970s science fiction show. Quite frankly.
And the remake. He had a prominent part of the remake.
and you're like, what's he done?
Mhm.
Kind of, And then I started talking to him, and he was probably the best public speaker I've ever met.
Mm.
He was mesmerizing when he would talk in front of a crowd. And I remember we hung out quite a bit in the bar, and I'm talking to him and we're talking, and he goes, hey, Mike, he goes, you got a really good voice for voiceover. You ever think about doing voiceover? And I'm like, no, Richard, I've never thought about doing voiceover. That's not my thing. And he goes, you should do voiceover. He goes, you know what you should do? Why don't you move to LA? You can stay at my place. We'll see if we can get you set up. And I'm like, yeah, right. And then by the end of the weekend, I'm like, I will move to Los Angeles with you, Richard. I will work for you. Right. But it's just, he is such a great guy.
That's
And,
amazing.
Unfortunately, he passed away, a while ago.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, he passed away, I think, about 4 years ago,
Oh no.
which was a real shame.
He wasn't very old.
He was older than you think.
Really?
I think he was in his 70s.
Oh wow. Well, he had it
Yeah.
well. I remember one of the GVNs we did. He was the How Come when I did. I walked out to go do it. And he was sitting back there because either he just had a thing, I think, and he was just watched. He sat and watched the whole GVN. We came off, and he said like that was really fun. And I was like you didn't have to stand and watch that,
Yeah, thanks, Richard Hatch.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
I was quite like, oh, like that's really cool that he would like take time out of his schedule to just.
Well, I hosted his panel,
Mhm.
so it was very interesting to host his panel because he really didn't want a moderator.
Oh, really?
He didn't. He just dealt with stuff himself. I said, okay, Rich, I'll just sit back here.
Yeah.
Anything happens, I'll be the best. And that's what I always look at a moderator as. You're there to protect the person you're talking to.
For sure.
So what you do is you give them a couple feeder questions
Mhm.
to get them up to speed. And then you're there if you get someone who goes, I have 7 questions.
Mhm.
You're like,
Yeah.
okay, bud, you can ask one. You can go to the back line. So you get to play the heavy
Mhm.
so that it doesn't damage their look.
Yeah. That's a
Right?
good point. Very good point.
Yeah. So you're there to make sure that they still look like a great person.
Mm.
While meanwhile, you're like, okay, like I'd like to talk about Donald Trump. No, we're not going to talk about that, buddy. Let's and you wouldn't believe how often that came up. I'm like, just no.
What's your opinion on geopolitical issues?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And now in episode 8 of Doctor Who,
That was a magician.
yeah, exactly. How did it happen?
Yeah,
Magic. Yeah,
it was the Cylons did something. All right, moving on. It's like what? That's
Yeah.
a different thing. It doesn't matter. Just get to the back.
What was an interesting person I did a show with was Gary Jones, who was on Stargate as
Oh
Walter.
yeah.
He is one of the funniest people I've ever met. And he writes for the debaters.
Oh really?
Yeah. So
Wow.
he and I have stayed in touch over the years now. God, we've been hanging like 8 years. We've been friends now. So it's funny how some of the guests you interview, you actually really hit it off and you
Yeah.
become good friends with them.
Yeah.
So like, for example, Eugene Simons, who played one of the Lannisters in Game of Thrones.
Mhm.
He played the young Lannister who goes religious and then
The one that
dies.
commits suicide?
No, he dies in the explosion of the dragon.
Oh yeah. Right,
He's got
right,
the
right.
symbol carved
Yep,
in his forehead. What a guy. What a great guy. So we hung out, really hit it off. There's this great picture of the two of us where I'm moderating his panel, and the two of us are cracking up laughing because it turns out we probably played Command and Conquer 2 against each other online. Because he was talking about, and he's significantly younger than me,
Yeah.
but he was talking about how he used to play the game. And I said, I used to play the game. And I used to do this really weird strategy. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, I think I played you because I remember someone doing that, which was basically hiding an engineer in the woods.
Mhm.
So you have a unit and anyway, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
he did the show. We had a great time. Wonderful guy.
Amazing.
Stay in touch. So the next year, I'm hosting Sci-Fi on the Rock again. My phone rings and it's a UK number. And I'm thinking, this is work. And I'm like, hello. And it's him. He goes, hey, Mike. I'm like, hey, Eugene. I said, what's up, bud? And he goes, oh, what are you doing? I said, I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland doing the convention. He goes, really? I go, yeah. And he goes, oh, okay, thanks. Talk to you later. I'm like, all right. And then 20 minutes later, he calls back. He goes, I got a plane ticket. I'll be there tomorrow morning. And he just came out to hang out.
Wow.
He wasn't an official guest or anything.
And you're amazed how some of these people that that you run into, like in your circles. I do a bit of acting, so I've run into a few people here and there that have sort of been, people that I'm familiar with or on set with. But like I did a convention in St. John's or St. John, sorry, New Brunswick one time.
Yeah.
And Eric Alvari was there. Do you know him?
No, who's that now?
You'd know him to see him. He's in a lot of stuff. He was in Stargate. He was like the religious dude that was in the culture. Yeah. He was he shows up in a lot of different things. He was in Independence Day briefly. Like he had a lot of roles. You'd know him to see him in an instant.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was just there with his dog, and he came to my booth and he talked to me for like an hour just about he was telling me a story about hanging out with Will Smith on the set of Independence Day because the same director Roland Emmerich did Stargate.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He
did.
Yeah. And then he said the director brought him in and then had him dress up as his character from Stargate as a prank on the crew because it was mostly the same crew. And then Will Smith recognized him because he played like a taxi driver in an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So like just all these little stuff. And like he's on my Facebook, I see updates from him all the time. He's a super cool guy. And it's just like you most people don't realize these celebrities are just people. They just want to have a good time. They're making a buck, but they also want to enjoy themselves and they want to, I think it's not just I think they too want to like fall into that culture where they feel accepted because they're known for doing these nerdy roles usually, like guys like him are. He does a lot of sci-fi stuff. And so it was like just cool. You know what I mean? Like he's just a guy.
Yeah,
He's
just
a
a
cool
guy.
guy. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I think you get an idea in your head about they're stars. They don't, they move in different circles. And it's like, no, they just want to be, they want to have fun. They want to be respected.
Yeah.
They want to meet their fans because who doesn't like being told I love you?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Like people coming up to you and saying, oh, I loved you. Oh, you were so good in that. I really like that. And the thing is, no matter who you are in what show, there's a group of people that love you.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Like with Eugene, I thought, okay, we're going to do the panel. It's going to be a ton of people asking questions about Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones was hot then. And the panel, it was almost all teenagers. And I'm like, wow, they're really into Game of Thrones. So I asked them a couple softball questions. And what I try to do when I moderate is I try to find out something that they're really proud of. Like, for example, Fraser Hines, who was the companion to the third Doctor, actually did a movie with Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, wow.
So I brought that up because he was really proud of that, right? Yeah. So what it was is he was in a show called House of Osiris, which was like a Harry Potter knockoff that has a fanatical teenage base.
Really? And
every question was about House of Osiris.
Wow.
And I knew nothing.
I was going to say, did you know anything about that?
No, I was standing there and he's like, so in the, when Bill is laying with John when he's been bitten by the vampire, and he tells him that the other world, and I'm like, you are talking Greek to me right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you involved with that event that happened? Wasn't there a con in like Newfoundland that happened were you involved in that?
No, I was.
Is that the one that Odo was supposed to go to, or Renee?
He did go.
Yeah,
he did go. So what happened in that one was I was asked to host it.
Okay.
And I kind of was like, I think I'll pass.
So what vibe? What vibe?
It was a vibe. It was just a vibe. And I just said, I'll tell you what, Guy ran it. Wonderful guy. I just think he got in a little over his head.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be attached to this because I have a feeling it's going to go south. So it did go south, as you know.
Well, good instincts.
Basically the vendors took up a charity to send Odo home, basically to pay him.
Oh my God.
It was, and Odo was not happy. He did some,
and that's like close to the end of his life. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he died a few years after that, did he not?
Yeah, he did. He did some pretty pointed Twitter things about.
So the guys flew him. Did the guys fly him in, but didn't have money to pay him or send him home?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very big miscalculation. So the con's back, but it's very much scaled down, way down.
Yeah, you really can't start at the top.
Yeah.
That's
what it was.
Yeah, I mean, the first year of HowlCon was pretty low key, and look what it is now. You got to build up.
And I think what's going to happen is I think all of this is going to be resetting for all of the cons. Not having done a con now in 2 years, I was kind of honestly at the last HowlCon feeling a little burnt out because it's been 10 years of doing it, doing the show, doing the Fat Apollo show, doing baby races. And so there's a lot of like, you got to be here, you got to be there, go do this.
Yeah. You're never not on.
Yeah. And that's the other point is that if you're an ambassador, you are always on the floor, shaking hands, not anymore,
Mhm.
talking to people, commenting on their costumes,
Yeah.
drawing people out of their shells,
Mhm.
Introducing people so that they'll hang out.
Mhm.
So you do kind of get a little tired
Mhm.
because it is real
Yeah. Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So I was really kind of feeling burnt out. And I have to be honest, is I really was thinking I was going to skip last year. I was like, you know what? Maybe just take a year off, Mike.
Mhm.
And then I had no choice.
Yeah.
Every con got canceled that I go to. So now, we're going to head into another rebuilding year where, HowCon runs on volunteers, and
Mhm.
it's a not for profit. They're going to have to pull their expectations back because they just don't have the money.
Yeah. Well, they
Right?
had a year with nothing. So
Yeah. So 2 years really, because
Oh, yeah, that's correct,
there's
yeah.
not going to be a HowCon this year.
no, for sure.
I think that probably we would have hit being able to do it, but
Mhm.
who's going to come to Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
Right.
Right now,
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you a funny story that why they have problems getting people in Newfoundland. So Darren Hahn, who does a lot of the bookings, he does the bookings for Atlanta Con, the Toronto Con, St. John's. He does all those. He's got big connections in the Star Trek community, big
Mhm.
connections.
Mhm.
So he can get big names to Newfoundland.
Mhm.
Right. So he was telling me that what's often a deal breaker is that Newfoundland is an attraction.
Mhm.
Because they're able to play up. You're going to come to a really cool place. It's
Yeah.
not like anywhere you've ever been before. It's mysterious. It's where the play come from away is from.
Yeah.
And so the guests get pretty like, oh, I want to go to this because this
Yeah.
is different. But here's the funny part is Darren talks to the guests and they get all excited. So then he has to deal with the agents. And he was saying what a deal breaker is that they always demand first class tickets.
Mhm.
That's a given. You're going to
Yeah.
pay first class wherever they come from, but there are no first class seats going into St. John's.
Yeah.
there is no
plane
airplane.
that big goes through. Yeah.
No. So what happens is Darren would say, okay, I can get you first class from Los Angeles to Halifax,
Mhm.
but then you've got to fly economy. And it's like, nope, I'm out.
Wow.
And that's a deal breaker.
It's like an
And
hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is Darren has told me that he's been able to then go to the guest
Mhm.
and get the guest to go, you know what, let's just waive that. But you
Yeah.
see, the agent is looking out for the best interest
Yeah,
of
of
their
course.
client because it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
That now you don't get first class. And then suddenly the Halifax con goes, look, we know you didn't take first class. We can't afford first class. It's economy from Los Angeles to Halifax.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to know the mechanics behind the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't even think that it's a financial issue. It's even something as
No.
simple as that can keep someone away.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, did I cover everything? There's anything about the life of Mike McCluskey that I'm unfamiliar with?
No, just happy to see you again, man. I haven't talked to you in so long.
you
It's
as
actually this is being a show is secondary to me. It's just fun to talk to you.
Oh, for sure.
And-
I've had a
and
blast.
just, shoot the crap with you. But it's great to talk to you. Nothing really I want to cover. You touched on my social justice warrior background. That I'm very, I'm really, I march in Pride every year.
Yeah.
I carry a flag.
Yeah.
I do that because, I don't look like your typical queer person.
Mhm.
And I hate to use that brush,
Mhm.
but you look like a normal guy.
Mhm.
And so you can break down those barriers by just admitting stuff that people go, oh, I didn't know. And the thing is, I've never
I
had.
actually, till this moment, didn't know that you identified as queer.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No,
Well,
it's
then
cool.
let's-
It's totally cool. No,
let's
absolutely.
Let's cut the interview. It's
no,
over.
no. It's all
Do
good.
it. I'm going to do it live.
Yeah.
But it's something that, I'm trying to encourage young people to discover that in themselves earlier. And the thing is, again, this community, HowCon is nothing if not accepting.
Oh, absolutely.
It is. And so is all the cons.
Yeah.
And, for some people, this is their first chance to express themselves certain ways where they don't yet have the guts to go to Pride and do that because it looks weird.
Yeah.
But now you can come to HowCon and, gender bend
Mhm.
Loki. Think about Loki.
Yep.
How many female Lokis do you see?
Oh, God.
All the
Yeah.
time, which
Oh,
is
yes.
awesome.
Yeah. for
Right.
sure.
And
Yeah.
it's also the chance for females to play male Loki.
Yeah.
And it's not looked upon as weird because Loki is queer as hell.
Yeah.
There's no character in the Marvel universe that's queerer than him.
For sure.
And so
He
so
literally
people-
swaps his gender on a whim sometimes.
yeah.
But
But he, it gives him a chance to do that. So I really look at the cons as being really open and to circle all the way back. That's why I was so proud of Halcon breaking the relationship with the library, which was not an easy decision to make.
Oh, really? There's a lot of.
Oh no!
What was the library's involvement with the con before?
What was the what?
The library's involvement with the con before.
Oh, huge! We do mini cons there.
Oh, okay.
They do book readings.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a lot more. Often it's off season where Halcon will do something for a week that isn't Halcon. So there's been a really good relationship between the two.
Yeah.
And so, if the library wants to stand on a matter of principle, Halcon's going to stand on a matter of principle.
Yeah.
And, and I give them credit because remember, the people that run Halcon are all volunteers. They aren't getting paid.
Yeah.
They're going to take all this heat. They locked down when they did this, they locked down their account. They deleted all the names of all the committee members, all their pictures, because they knew they're going to be targeted.
For sure.
They are going to be targeted. So I give them credit for having the guts. I don't expect that everybody can expose themselves the same way I do, where it's like, I will say who I am. I will give my opinion, but I got nothing to lose. I really don't care.
Yeah.
So, but younger people, they'll go after them, their jobs, they'll call their jobs, try to get them fired. For me, Admiral is incredibly accepting of the LGBT community.
Excellent.
Incredibly accepting.
Excellent.
So what are you going to say about me? He's a loudmouth. And they're like, yeah, that's why he works for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's cool that you brought that up again, because it made me think about that, because there have been substantial like counter protests to like some of these anti-mask people events, and also like the Proud Boys when they try to do a convention in Halifax. Like the geek and nerd community has really rallied around doing anti-protest of that sort of stuff, and really stopped a lot of those events in their tracks. And that's beyond just like celebrating your nerddom or what you're into. Like it's actually taking that, formulating a group of like-minded people that want to see fair justice for people that are perhaps going to be targeted by these groups. I mean, hate groups for sure. And they're rallying, go out and make a stand on behalf of their community, and even a community that might not be connected to them. Like, it's not like Halcon is well known for being, a champion against racism, but they all come out and do that when there's someone they're targeting it. And
exactly.
They're just champions for the disenfranchised or the minorities. And it's really cool to see that.
Yeah. And that's why I'm proud of them. They've done a good job. That again, I didn't know whether they were going to do it or not. And there was this part of me that said, I can understand why they're not going to take a stand, but I'm going to be really disappointed. Yeah. And they did it. And I was very proud of them.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
We'll keep up the good work. That was great talking to you, man. Hopefully we'll get to see you at the convention again soon.
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to see you again, buddy. So sayonara, Gamera. Can I tell you something? Just like
absolutely.
I want to say something about Gamera.
All right.
I grew up loving Godzilla films.
Do you want to stay right there for a moment?
Yeah,
I'll be right back. I'll cut this out of the interview,
okay,
or if I leave it in. Actually, I can let it go if you just want to entertain the guests. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. I'm going to wait till he comes back to talk about Gamera. But yeah, I love Godzilla films, and in the 80s, I used to buy the VHS copies of all the Godzilla films, and it turned out one of them was a rare copy of Godzilla versus Smog Monster. And it was the only North American release of Godzilla versus Smog Monster. And I sold it to a guy in Tokyo for several $100s, this copy of Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. Gamera! I love Gamera.
This was the Arrow box set that has every Gamera movie ever made in it. It comes with a comic book. It comes with a collection about the books, and every single book on movie on Blu-ray is in the set.
Oh, because you see, what I liked about Gamera is a hero to all Japanese children. That's what it becomes. But at first, Gamera was a monster. He wasn't a friendly kind of cat. And I remember Gamera is walking through Tokyo or whatever city he's in, and he looks wonky. His eyes are wonky. He's terrible suit. And he gets up to the discotheque. And the police have run into the discotheque, and they're like, you have to leave. Gamera is coming. And they look at the cops. They go, no, we must dance. And they all start dancing. And they're playing the Gamera song, which is Gamera. Yeah. It sounds like Batman. Gamera, Gamera, Gamera. And Gamera, like Hulk Hogan or The Rock, actually goes, cups his ear to hear the music. And then he stomps the shit out of the disco with the people inside it. He kills them. I guess the music was not melodic enough.
I
Gamera says,
guess Gamer didn't appreciate it.
so then Gamera keeps walking, and you'll remember at the end they bait him into the nose cone of a rocket.
Mhm.
It closes up, and they send him into space.
Yeah.
And as they're sending him to space, Gamera's little friend, little kid who likes Gamera for no reason,
Even though he's murdering
he's
people,
murdering tens of
destroying
thousands of
his
people.
city and his town.
So the kid's standing there crying, and the general turns to him and goes, "What's wrong, Billy?" And he goes, Gamera's gone. I'm very sad. And he goes, "Don't worry, he'll be back soon." And it's like, what?
We destroyed the monster, but don't worry, he'll be back in the sequel.
He'll be back soon.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny to me that this kid, and the only thing that tops that is I remember watching the original Godzilla
Mhm.
with the American edit. Remember,
Yeah, they threw in the American soldier guy or the general.
the reporter.
Yeah.
And it's Raymond Burr.
Right.
And so they're showing destroyed Tokyo, and Raymond Burr's melodious voice is like, "Tokyo, a city in ruins. Who knew it would come to this?" And then he goes, "I'm Steve Martin." And I cracked up every time because he's Steve Martin, as in Steve Martin, the comedian.
Wow.
Anyway, so that just cracked me up. I'm Steve Martin.
I got to go watch some Gamera now.
Yeah, all right, bud.
Oh, man, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so
Yeah,
much for
you
being
too.
on. And I really hope to see you at the convention very soon.
Me too.
Awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye-bye. And there it is, my talk with Fat Apollo Mike McCluskey. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I really did. I'm looking forward to just listening to the parts of the conversation when I went to go get the Gamera box set to hear what he said. I didn't actually listen to it yet, so I'm going to let that part go, and I'm going to listen to this with you, so I'll be equally as surprised. Super great, super fun interview. I'm looking forward to doing a bunch more of these, and I hope you are too, because you don't have to wait a whole month now in between each interview. You're going to get them every 2 weeks. So that being said, hope you like the new format. I'm excited for it. I think things will be, I think it's an improvement, a good one, and I hope you do too. But in the meantime, I'm your host, Andre Mayette. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to tune in 2 weeks with another episode when I speak to someone else connected to the comic nerd sci-fi fantasy industry. And I really appreciate you tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next time.